All right, we're looking at the foundation of chaturanga, which is going to be plank, coming from a tabletop position. Caitlin's on her hands and knees. She's going to put her pelvis in a neutral position. We talk about this a lot. Not having an overly arched back, which would be an anterior pelvic tilt and an extension of the spine, cow, or a flexed spine and posterior pelvic tilt, which is cat. She's going to find the neutral position, which she does really, really well. Now from here, she's going to go ahead and straighten her legs and come into her plank. I'm going to give all the different cues. So we want index fingers pointed forward, hands lined under the shoulders. Now from there, she's going to push into the ground to almost get her upper back to dome a little bit. We don't want it to round. We just want the shoulder blades to spread. This is scapula protraction. From there, we want her bottom ribs to draw in, navel point to spine. Okay, another way to think about that is tailbone lengthening down, hip points pulling up, and you get this little bit of a tuck to engage the transverse abdominis and the obliques. Her legs are engaged, so quadriceps engaged, inner thighs spiraling upward. Okay, she's on the balls of her feet. Then a couple other energetic cues. She's going to hug her upper arms towards each other to activate her pectorals. She's going to pull her palms toward her toes to activate her core and her lats. And then a slight lift in the back of the head to keep a nice long back of neck. And this is a really strong plank position. We're going to look at the difference between cobra pose, which has many variations, and then upward facing dog. So cobra, bhujangasana, and up dog, urdhva mukha svanasana. So Caitlin will come all the way down to the ground so we can look at the hand positioning. Now, oftentimes you'll hear the cue to have your hands under the shoulders. Unfortunately, what that does, if she brings her hands under her shoulders, she has this elbow, this greater than 90-degree bend in the elbow, right? So if she lifts up and presses up, she's going to have her hands way out in front, and that's going to make her dump into her lower back. So, and you can also see the palms aren't completely flat. So when she comes back down, the cue I like to give is line up your fingertips with the armpits. Thumbs kind of by the lower ribs, but that's kind of variation because the ribs are entire from here to here. So I like fingertips in line with armpits, index fingers pointing forward. Now she's going to take a baby cobra. As she presses into the mat, her focus here is rolling the shoulders back, keeping the palms completely flat, and driving the heart forward as she lifts her head. She can take her gaze as high as she can without creating a pinch or compression in the cervical spine. Okay, that's more of a baby cobra. She comes all the way down. We're going to have her go into full cobra, which is elbows extended. So she's going to come on up into full cobra. Now here, she still has her knees down on the ground. What tends to happen with most people is they clench their cheeks. So the idea of trying to relax the glutes, that you can see with her, that takes the pressure out of the SI joint, the lower back. So if you can, get your glutes to relax. Now with the feet, hers are great. We want the heels in line with the toes. So there's a little hugging of the heels inward. She's drawing her shoulders back. She's lifting her sternum up and pulling forward through her hands. So her palms, as they press completely flat, she's almost dragging her heart through so that her collarbones will spread and it's just pulling forward. This is cobra. The difference in cobra and upward facing dog is this. In up dog, she lifts her knees and her thighs off the mat. She's still reaching her tailbone down, and as a cue I didn't mention, belly is drawing in. So she's drawing in her belly to protect her lower back, pushing down into her hands, creating a nice long neck, reaching up through the crown of the head. Now, she's welcome to take her gaze to a comfortable space. Some say look up. I'm not a fan of that because it can crank on the back of the neck. It doesn't work for my body and for some people. So finding a high gaze that keeps the neck comfortable. Upward facing dog. Setting up downward facing dog is really great to do from plank. So Caitlin will shift forward back to that plank position she was in. Now this is the distance that we want, the length on our mat for downward facing dog. Feet apart, 2 fist distance, hands as wide as the shoulders. From here, when she sends her hips back, she has a nice long down dog. Knowing that down dog, our main intention is to traction and lengthen the spine. It's also, we're going to get some stretching in the back of the legs, posterior chain, hamstrings, down through the calves. However, that's not the main focus. The main focus is traction in the spine. Now, what we see is one of two things. Either a rounded back because the hamstrings are tight and the pelvis is locked up in an posterior pelvic tilt. We see this. This is when we'd want to bend the knees a little bit and then send the hips up and back. Okay. Now, if she has like a more hyperextended spine, or she can dump into her shoulders and dump into her lower back, like that, which is really exaggerated. This is where we really want to start to activate the core muscles. Same thing as we always talk about, the bottom ribs are pulling in. Now we'll talk about the rest of downward facing dog. So I'm going to have her change the angle and show her back to the camera. So she's going to turn all the way around, facing here, hands on here. Now, finding that same position when she pushes back to downward facing dog, heels pressed toward the floor. And as she looks back at her feet, she wants to make sure her heels are out of sight. And she can even press to the outer heels a little bit to get the inner thighs to press to the back wall. Palms are pressing down. Now, if she's starting to slide, what she needs to do is pull her palms toward her toes. That's going to activate her lats. Now, what I really want you to see is arm bones rotating externally, okay? Shoulder blades spreading, scapula protraction. The bottom ribs stay knitted, outer hips lift, heels pressed down, maybe a slight bend in the knees.